Good morning. Good morning. This is Jeff Cameron here on behalf of the RDIEC. It's my pleasure to invite Sean Pion with us here today. He's the Recording Arts Institute, the director of the Recording Arts Institute of Saskatoon. Some of the data and videos and so forth that he has sent me looks unbelievable. And for someone of my age, I just can't imagine what the opportunities for kids out there today. Thanks so much for joining us here today, Sean, and I'm going to let you take her away.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. Thanks for having us. This is great. As Jeff had said, I'm Sean. I'm with the Recording Arts Institute of Saskatoon. We're a digital arts school here in Saskatoon. We're pretty much the only digital arts school in Saskatchewan, and that's great for us because when I was growing up and following my career path, there were no digital schools here in the province. So most of myself and my colleagues had to go out to Vancouver or Ontario to get this training. So the Recording Arts Institute of Saskatoon, we have four programs that we teach at our school. We teach 3D animation, we teach film production, sound production, and also video game design. So those are our four areas of teaching. I'll briefly describe each of them so you can kind of know what they all entail, and then I'll show you some of the work the students have done at our school. We're pretty proud of it, and I know they are too, so we'll take a look at some of that too. So our first program, we call it audio engineering, and so that's sound production, right? We have a couple big studios. Well, I'm in one of them. This is the smaller. We call this one Studio B. So it's kind of a smaller setup. I wasn't able to access Studio A today because the students are in there recording bands. And it's one of those big studios with all the big soundboard with all the knobs and the glass through to the drum kits and the big setup, right? So our students learn to produce music and to alter sound. So by bringing in a band each week or an artist, the students record that artist in this recording studio, and the following week they edit, mix, and produce that band. So they're working with a whole bunch of different bands to get better at mixing music and producing music, right? We also do something called live sound. So that's setting up big speakers and PA systems for festivals or in clubs where the big PA system, the speakers face out towards the crowd, and then there's smaller cameras or speakers on the stage for the band to listen to, and the students are trained to how to mix that sound in the audience so that everything sounds good. We also get into something called location audio. So that's working on a film set. You've seen a person with a long pole with a fuzzy microphone on the end. That's called a boom microphone. So that's when somebody's working on film set, they can capture the sound of the dialogue between the actors. And the last part of that section that we teach in audio is something called post-production audio. So most people don't realize this, but the only sound they actually capture on set of a film is just the dialogue. Every sound effect, every squeaky door, every footstep, every punch, every gunshot, we add that sound into the recording studio afterwards. So gunshots and punches in movies sound really big and amazing, and they don't really sound like that in real life. So we beef up that sound so we can make it more interesting and bring it over the top a bit. We have this thing called a Foley pit. It's just a box full of different types of dirt. And so you can add the sounds of somebody running down a gravel road or, high heels on a cement walk. And we add all those sounds after the fact. Same happens with, we can't just put up a microphone to a spaceship and grab sounds for spaceships. So we have to create our own sounds sometimes too in that aspect. So the audio students go through all that aspect and learn all those different areas. They also have access to the recording studio so they can record themselves or their bands or friends. So that's kind of the audio program. It's only a 6-month program. The students get really immersed and just learn how to use that software. The next program we have we call it the Motion Picture Arts Program. That's a film program. It's the practical aspects of how to make movies. So we get the technical aspects of how to use cameras, how to use lighting, editing software, special effects. We go through all the process and all the theory behind it, and then we just make a bunch of projects. The students will do a documentary on one of their fellow classmates. They'll do a music video for a local artist or band. They'll do a commercial for a local nonprofit. And then the last portion of the class, each student gets to create their own short film. So they'll write the script, they'll scout the locations where they want to shoot that film, they'll audition the actors, they will be the directors of their film. Their classmates will be their crew on their film. And of course, they would be the crew on all of their classmates' directed films. And students then edit the film, color correct it, work with an audio student to do all that audio design I was talking about, the sound effects. And they've got a series of projects that they can show off. As I'll explain as we go through all of the programs, that's what all of our programs do. It's about building a portfolio. Because in the end, employers that are employing you for this kind of thing, they want to see what you can do rather than just see the piece of paper. I'll talk more about that afterwards. But the third program we have is called 3D animation. And so there's 3D animation is kind of a catchphrase that holds a bunch of different positions. So in animation, say an animated Pixar movie, Toy Story, there's a series of processes and placements that these work needs to go through to get to the end, to the finish. So somebody creates the models, they're creating the characters or the vehicles or whatever. That's just a digitally sculpted creation, a three-dimensional object. Then it goes to somebody that does the rigging. So they put the internal structure inside that model so that when it gets to the animator can now move the character around and add personality and action to the film. There's another position, another job that just teaches how to do the texture. So the wood grain on a wooden table, or the rocks, or the fur around a coat. These are all texturous jobs. So they're adding all the texture to those models. And then there's somebody that just does lighting and shading. Their job is just to add the atmosphere to the scene. It would be kind of a funny scene if, there was a witch stirring a cauldron under fluorescent lights. Doesn't really seem very scary, right? So we tend to add all of these elements to bring the viewer deeper into the story, to impress them more. In the audio side, the music obviously changes the way you feel about a scene. If there was funny clown music, well, there's a funeral going on, you might not get the desired effect, right? So all of these positions are there to kind of, again, bring the watcher or the player of games and movies deeper into the storyline, right? Our last program we have at our school here is called Game Art and Design, and it's video game design. So in that program, we use Unity and Unreal Engine, which are big game engines. And we use those engines to start creating games. And the students make all sorts of games. They learn some of the psychology behind it too, of what makes an interesting level and how to get the players to do specific tasks, right, while you're playing. I'm going to share the screen right now, and I'm going to show you some of the work that the students have done. I'm just going to talk while that's going on, and I can explain some of the stuff that happens. Let me get this going here. Okay. So you can see, these are some examples of some of the student work. These are games that the students were building in the game engine, some of the video games, obviously some more simple looking games to more complex. This is a short film that some of the 3D students did together. I was explaining to you how each person takes on a specific task. One person created all the models in there. Somebody put the rigging in so the animators could create the action and the motion. Somebody did all the texturing so you can see all the rocks and the design on the rocks. Somebody did the lighting and the shading, and they composited it all together and they create this little short film. This is only a 30-second commercial, but this took a few weeks for several students to do. It's time-consuming work. It's not simple where you just type it in the computer and it does it itself. That's why at the end of Marvel movies and at the end of a video game, when you see the credits, it just goes on forever. There's hundreds of names on there. That's because it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort for people to do this process, to get through, to be able to create even a short film like that. Again, you're seeing interdispersed in here. It's not all 3D animation stuff. A couple of the last images were from the film students. They're able to get all of our wonderful 4K and 6K cameras and lighting and all this gimbals and all these fun toys. They get to take it anywhere they want, every weekend, every evening after school. It's for them to do whatever they want with. So the students, that was obviously some scenes out in BC. The student had taken some equipment. We had a girl that was in our school that was an avid bow hunter, and she took a bunch of equipment up north and documented her hunt. So the students have access to this equipment to just get better at using equipment, right? And that's kind of the point of all of our programs is the more hands-on, the more time you get to do it, the more project-based, just the better you're going to get by practice and by learning from your own mistakes. So messing things up and learning, I'm not going to make that mistake again. This on the screen right now is an example of what I was talking about, rigging. So that was just a car model. And as you can see the tires are movable and the doors can open. That was done by somebody to take that model and open up and be able to make all of those elements move, right? We'll see some more complex examples of it, but you're getting a good idea of what goes into that. So now the animators can play with it in any way they want. You know, the animators, Goofy, the character Goofy from Disney, he's a funny looking guy, but so much of what makes him really funny is the way he moves, right? And so the animators kind of they're kind of the quarterbacks of the team. They get all the praise because they're the most noticeable position on the team sometimes. So they get a lot of props. Again, some more examples of some of the group projects that the students did. You can see more complex projects as the students move on as well. This is another example of some of the work in Unity. The students were playing with this environment that they built and playing with the daytime. So remember, I was talking about how there's somebody that takes care of just the lighting and shading. Well, that's aspects that they build in, again, from the dark environment that's a little bit more eerie and scary to this, where it's, you know, a nice sunset atmosphere and it's a little bit warm and more inviting. And so you can see all the different aspects of this students build. This is some examples of VFX. So those are special effects that students put over top of visual stuff they've created, right? So the film students are building these. Sometimes the 3D animation students will help. We don't have screens like that at our school. I wish we did. They're pretty cool. But our screens are just regular IMAX. This, you can see that scene was practically shot with the girl and the lighting, and that CGI drone was added afterwards. So you get to see those kind of some examples. There's some pictures of our recording studio in there. It's really something to behold, to actually be in the recording studios, to sit in that environment and to be able to hear music through through the speakers and in that environment. It's pretty cool that way. Again, you can see some more examples of some of the projects that the 3D students do. I'm going to skip along to a couple of different things here, just because for sake of time, but again, you can see these are all examples of the portfolios the students have created. And again, I was saying, employers don't care where you went to school. They want to see what you're capable of doing. This is always a goofy one that gets people laughing. This is how the environment starts off in a game engine. It's just this blank space. So this student didn't really care about the environment. He was playing with the skin he had made specifically for that character. And he was playing around with the NPC's behaviors and kind of playing around with the animation of things. Another example of some of the students' games. Obviously, the complexity can be really pretty impressive. First-person shooter, or like top-downs or side scrollers, and then it can be pretty simple, like mobile app games. So this really depends on what the students feel like making to be able to create this stuff, right? Again, more examples of VFX. So essentially, what all of our programs are about is to learn how to use the tools and then start to build a portfolio. Portfolios are not something that you build once and that's all you have. It's constantly going to be your resume, your digital resume. Eventually, off my resume, I took off that I used to deliver newspapers because it didn't really matter anymore as I got further and further into my career. And so it's important for artists that want to do this as their career to continually be adding to their portfolio. And that's so much of what becoming an artist and professionally is about, right? You have to be a little bit crazy to do this. This is something that you have to be really passionate about. We always joke, but it's kind of serious. If you want to be rich, don't be an artist. And there's some truth to that, but can you make a living at doing this? Yes, some people can, but not everybody's going to be able to do this. It takes a lot of work and a little bit of talent. There are no prerequisites to get into our programs. You don't need to have taken a programming class or a digital art class because not every school offers that kind of thing. So we do insist that the students have that passion because that's what's going to draw you through, but it also is important that you have a creative element. We can't teach that. That has to be there. This what you're seeing on the screen right now is Tyler was a graduate from last year, and this is his favorite character from a game called League of Legends. And based off the quality of this little portfolio thing and 5 interviews, he got hired by Riot Games and works on his favorite video game. But that he spent hundreds of hours and so much passion pushing himself to get good at this. It's not, you can't just show up and finish the course and there you go, you're going to have a successful career in this. It takes hard work and perseverance from here on in. So for a lot of people that are crazy about this, it's nice because this is the first time they're surrounded by like-minded people that are just as big of nerds about this as they are. We're a school full of absolute nerds and we love it. We love collaborating. We love working on projects with each other. It's really nice because we have such a small school. We only take 15 students in each program. So there's lots of opportunities for the students to collaborate. So, you know, the audio students are doing sound effects for the film students, and the 3D students are making characters and vehicles for the video games. So it gets really tight knit, and everybody kind of gets to collaborate and work together, which is a great aspect for the students to be able to start building teams as they're here in school. It takes a lot of work, like I said. And so to be passionate and to pursue this is going to mean you're going to dedicate a lot of time to it. Our class time's only 9 to 2:30 every day, but the school's open till 9. The students are able to stay as long as they want. And we're one of the only schools around that our graduates have access to at the schools for the rest of our life, or for the rest of their life. So our audio students can come in and use the recording studios on the weekend and charge bands money to work out of there. The film students come borrow equipment. They do all sorts of they do all sorts of acting classes in here, and they hold auditions. Our 3D students bring in stuff. So we're a resource forever after. This is an interesting time of that we live in right now. We have unlimited media, seemingly. Like we have Netflix and Paramount and Disney, and we just binge watch anything we want. We have any song we want on Spotify. And there's something that people need to remember, that it's sometimes good to create rather than just consume. And that's something that art can bring to you. Even if your intention is not to become, you know, an artist and pursue this as your career, that's okay. To take on some of this as a hobby is fantastic. It's a great outlet. It's a great way for you to express yourself, and a way to, again, create rather than consume. There's something rewarding about when you're finished something, wiping your hands off and going, I built that, I made that. And so if this is not something you want to do as your career, that's okay. There's lots of free software and free opportunities for you to try out some of this software and see if you like it. Grab a pencil and a paper, grab a ukulele and learn to play it. Anything like that can be helpful for students to do this. If you are interested in pursuing art as a career, schooling is a good way to do it. It's good to be surrounded by an environment where you get feedback and you get taught by people that are experienced, and they can show you things, and to be able to just have immediate feedback and create and learn from those mistakes. We're really the only show in Saskatchewan for this, but there's lots of other schools. There's some big schools out in Vancouver and Toronto. They're great schools, great teachers, good programs. They are really far away and they're incredibly expensive. Not bad schools, just really expensive. And so our programs are about half the cost of any of those big schools. So it's a nice opportunity to kind of dip your toes and see if this is really what you want to do before you kind of fully jump in and commit to this. Again, if this is something you want to do, then you're welcome to just search us out. We're the Recording Arts Institute of Saskatoon. We're RAIS.ca, RAIS.ca, and we'd love to just, if you're interested, to make a trip to Saskatoon and come see the school. Our students love showing off their work. So when somebody comes in to see the school, they love to brag and flex their new projects they're working on, or let you beta test their video game. And you just can come in and see what the environment's about, and, you know, secretly ask the students, like, hey, does this place suck? And you'll get a good, honest opinion from the students about what it's all about. So it's a nice opportunity to be able to come check it out and see what it's all about. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But
Hi, Sean. Yeah, what an awesome presentation. Thank you so much for that. I do have a question though. With the limited number of seats that your college offers, do you have a waiting list? Do you have students that are trying, you know, how how easy is it to get into your
Right,
college?
right. Like I had mentioned earlier, there's a special kind of crazy that wants to do this, right? And so it's a very niche thing. We sometimes do have waiting lists, but not all the time. Our process is, because there's no prerequisite classes, the process to apply at our school is you apply online, it doesn't cost anything, you apply, and then we invite you to the school to have a tour of the school. And during that, we treat it as an interview. So we sit down with the students, we see where their expectations are as far as this career path goes, maybe some of the experience they have, if some artwork that they've already worked on or some music they've already created, we like to listen to that and see what kind of potential is there. So sometimes the classes, there are people that are not able to make it into the classes, but most of the time they are, because, like I said, this is a very niche thing. It's not like playing video games. If you like playing video games, doesn't mean you're necessarily going to like this. It is a lot of work for all of this. It's just incredible amount of detail and precision and planning and execution. So it takes a very motivated and dedicated, passionate person to pursue this. And that's not everyone, that's not everyone. So
Thanks so much for sharing that information. I think that's important for students to know,
for sure,
just what they need to do, and for detailing that like that. That's great.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, Sean, as far as passion goes, you can see it oozing from your pores. So, I mean,
Love
it's
it.
so important to have a leader like yourself doing that. Are there specific classes when the kids are looking at this that they need to have in school, and specific grade average, or?
You know what? I wish every school offered digital art or programming or whatever, but there's just not an option for a lot of schools, especially, we have a lot of students that come from remote communities or smaller communities that just don't have the access to this. So no, it is not a requirement. If any student had any sort of communication media class or photography class or music class, anything in the arts where they might even actually get to start playing with some software, huge benefit. Even something like drafting can be like AutoCAD stuff can be useful, because a lot of that sculpting and digital sculpting stuff, the tools are similar, the software is different, but the process to create is similar. So I think anything the students can get their hands on would be useful. But again, there are no grade averages. I'm an artist. I didn't really do all that well in high school. I passed. Students need to finish high school in order to come to the school. But a lot of us that think this way and are creative minds don't necessarily excel in that situation. And so there are no grade point averages. We have a lot of students at our school, a good percentage that are somewhere on the autistic spectrum or have ADHD or learning disabilities, because our brains work in a little bit different way. And so it's a nice option, especially because we're a small school. We're really able to customize it for those students that come in that do learn at a different speed and learn in a different process, to give them one more hands-on attention and a little bit more time with the instructors and equipment.
Oh, that's just awesome, Sean. What would you say something like a pay scale would be? I know you'd mentioned if you want to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it goes from depending. I mean, we have students that have gone right out of school and worked for big video game companies, and they're making six figures. But that's something you got to work up to. These are the most like cream of the crop of the class that have just, their lives have been dedicated to this, right? An audio person coming out, they can immediately, about 50% of our students coming out of audio go into work for corporate audio visual. And I think they start at about $20, $21 an hour. You can be making that, obviously increase as you go. We have lots of students that go work for TV stations or radio stations. Those might start a little bit higher, but so there's a pretty wide variety of where these come from. We have some students, film students, that go work for YouTube channels and get paid very well, just creating content and helping produce content for some YouTube channels. So it's a varying scale depending on how dedicated and which end of the field you're going to. So it can be.
How large are your classes?
Sorry?
Sorry. How large are your classes then?
You only take 15 students, a maximum of 15 in each program.
Okay. And that's a year program?
That's the audio and the sorry, the 3D animation and the video game design are 12 full months. So they start in January each year and they go right to Christmas, right? September, audio and film start. Those are 10-month programs.
Okay, that's awesome. Celebrations for the students, would you say, what are some of the biggest celebrations and maybe challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think that because this is such a passion-driven thing, to come out and be collecting a paycheck for something you're so passionate about. There's the saying that if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, right? And for a lot of us that pursued this as our career, this is something we do regardless if we were getting paid. So successes for us is maybe put in a different way, to be able to do this as our career and get paid is something. I put my level of what I consider success as maybe a different thing, right? I have friends that are doctors and lawyers and whatever, and they make more money than I do. But I love my job, and that's something that some of them can't say about theirs. And so where my level of success is not always dependent on the amount of money I make, right? Enough to be comfortable and to have a mortgage and raise my kids and all the rest. But some feel that as a success. Some of the trials and the tough, turbulent stuff that the students come out of is, this is competitive, right? You're competing with a lot of people that want to do this too, and that's where the passion comes in. Because if you're really dedicated to this, then you're going to work. You're going to just put all of your effort. You're going to live, breathe, eat, and sleep this stuff, and that brings a lot of success. This can be a tough environment working we have students that go out to, Vancouver and Montreal, and they go work in the animation industry, and it can chew you up a little bit and spit you out. They work you hard. They work you very hard, especially when you start at the bottom, and they work you hard and test you in the crucible to see who kind of makes it to the next level. So again, self-motivation and a good work ethic is also really important for students like this, because it's not all about just sitting waiting for this 3D factory to come hire you. You got to get out there and kind of make an effort to make your way in this world, in the art world, for sure. A big part of what we do after students are done, as far as resources go, is we give them memberships, their first year membership to the industry associations that related to these programs. So SIMPIA, which is the the Media Production Industry Association for film, and Sask Music, which is for audio. So these are places for them to network, meet bigger companies, producers. They get to take part in the workshops that are put on by these companies. We also give them memberships to a local cooperative called Paved Arts, which is an arts cooperative where they've got recording studios and film equipment and all of this great stuff and networking opportunity for these students to be able to come out and just start building relationships and starting to make potentially a clientele list.
Well, coming from someone that I think the first time I even was on a computer was in grade 12, and then I was teaching here in Alameda in the early 90s, and something called the internet came on for the kids. So I've kind of seen the whole progression, and it's just amazing what you and your group are doing, and I was completely blown away. So I just want to thank you so much. Of note, there's two little people over here in grade 6, just in this little school, that are working on their own video games. So yeah, it's just amazing. I'm not even sure how I would start, or even how they are, but they're just right into it. So no, it's unbelievable. And it's a great presentation, and it's going to help so many kids out there. And I thank you so much, Sean.
Thanks so much. Yeah, let me know if you ever need anything.